This special meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 5:02 p.m. I am very pleased that you have taken time to join us this evening. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. We have established a quorum and we will take roll. Give me just a second. Okay. Okay. And to my left is our interim superintendent, Dr. Fields.
Hi. Oh, I'm supposed to do hi.
All right. I know there is at least one board member on their way and will be here soon. All right. We've established a quorum and taken roll. So our next item is acknowledgement of visitors or citizens to be heard. Do we have any citizens to be heard this? Okay. All right, so we do not have any visitors to be heard. So we'll go on to item 3, discussion, consideration of action items. Consider and take possible action regarding the responses to the request for qualifications for superintendent search services. So this is going to be a bit of a work session for the board. My understanding is that everybody got the proposals emailed to them. Do you also have copies, Betty? Okay, we can also look on our devices. So I'm thinking that maybe we can start with just some reading time in case folks didn't get a chance to peruse those ahead of the meeting. And it looks like Ms. Pichelle and Ms. Eaton have both arrived, so we can note that for the record. Ms. Pichelle already marked herself present using the device, and Ms. Eaton, when you're ready, you can do that too. Perfect. All right, there we go. You might just be watching us read for a little bit while we look at the proposals, and I'll check in with folks in about maybe 15 minutes, and we'll see how much more time people want. Thank you. Okay, that was about 15 minutes. I'll check in with board members. Would you like more reading time, or would you like to move to discussion? Ms. Canoria, do you need more time, or are you good? Okay. Ms. King, do you need more time, or, okay, Ms. Eaton? Okay. Mr. Diaz, do you need more time? Ms. Pichelle, do you need more time? Okay. All right, we're ready to move to discussion. I'm curious if, after reading them, folks have a clear preference and we want to start there, or if there are like questions or comments folks want to make about what stood out. And we can, I guess I can use our discussion if you'd like to say something. Ms. Pichelle.
After perusing them last night, I can go with either of the firms, JG or HYA, not TASB. The national firm, I don't know if we've ever done that one before. The national search, I don't know if we've ever done that one before. But what I like about that is their experience, the number of years of experience that they've had with different enrollments in the school districts that they've dealt with. They make it they make it a point, very much a point, that they reach out to candidates of color, so they have diverse pools. I'm interested in that. They do say that they're proactively reaching out to minority candidates. When I look at the staff, though, that they...
It does not reflect that.
It doesn't reflect what they say.
Yeah.
However,
You hear the words that are coming out.
however, I could go with either of them.
Okay.
GJ was also appealing.
What ruled TASB out for you?
It's TASB.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other thoughts folks want to share?
I have a question,
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Bashar, and I apologize. Sorry. I have laryngitis. You said you ruled TASB out because they're TASB, right? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
I just want to be clear. And the reason I'm asking is because this has kind of been a guide book of such for myself and in a direction that you actually pointed me in when I became a board member. So can you kind of explain to me why you would rule them out? I'm just curious.
What I'll explain to you is what was more appealing with the other two. And I said what was appealing to me is something that's important to me, and that's diversity. And they were very upfront about the candidates that they will reach out to. And the other thing that was appealing, I did a little research, and I found out that in, let's see, one of the folks in JG, sorry about that, Mr. Kidry. Let's see. There's a name here that I was familiar with. Jaklich, Jacklick.
Dr. Jacklich.
Dr. Jacklick. And because Dr. Jacklick's name is on this list, I would probably say JG over is it HYV? HYA?
And again, because anyway, you know, spent more time in the military than I have in education, but I got here as fast as I could. It's unfortunate that I don't have the experience of having knowledge of some of these people and their performances and what they do or don't do. And what's important to me is that I be on the team that wants to hire someone to do our selection that is heading in the direction that we want to take the district, and that is our students to the top. And I know we need our teachers to lift them up, and our teachers need us to be that support. And so that's what I'm looking at. So if there's something you can share that can enlighten me on this group over the other, I would really appreciate it. Other than you recognize a name, ma'am, because seriously, I'm deep diving on this. So if you could help me out, I really appreciate it.
I think
You're
what-
addressing
oh,
me? You still addressing me, Ms. Eaton?
Yep, I'm sorry. I thought we were still talking. I'm sorry. I thought you and I were still talking. I apologize. I know I'm hoarse, but did you hear what I said?
Well, ma'am, I don't know any more about the other firms than you do, other than the information that we've gotten. So what I read was appealing to me.
No, and I appreciate that. All I'm saying
I
is,
realize TASB, it doesn't cost as much.
right,
I know that.
I looked at the money too.
Okay. And we know that TASB is a go-to at any time we need their services for anything. They are a go-to. I'm not, giving them any demerits, but it's TASB. We're always able to go to TASB. They are a go-to.
Yes, ma'am.
So because of that, and we have an extension, which is a national search. I don't know if our district has ever done that before, but for me, this would be a first time. And when I looked at their experience and their focus, I was attracted to the other two besides TASB.
Okay. That part I understand. What I'm saying, or what I guess I'm trying to ask you and say, is that I want it to be clear, because I like the idea, the national search, because that's what we did discuss. But I'm trying to make sure that there's not some information that you may have about one firm or over the other.
You want to make sure that I don't have?
No, not in a negative way. It's just that you taught in Texas. You retired from Judson. You may have experienced their work ethics in other areas prior to now. You may have some knowledge of something that can be shared with all of us that will help us determine which one. Because I like the one that's going for the national search, because that's what we had spoke about.
And that's, I think, what Ms. Fischel was saying. She also liked that one.
Yes, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and
I guess I'm going the long way around the loop.
got it. And
Okay.
I mean, so I think to recap, what I heard Ms. Fischel say was that HYA and JG both talked about how they were going to attract a diverse pool of candidates
Yes,
across a
yes.
wide geographic range. TASB did not.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm
Exactly, because TASB's focused on Texas.
Right, yes.
And that's what they're here for, right? Okay.
Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts? I talked to some colleagues who have been on boards about search services that they've used. And I wasn't able to talk to anybody who's used HYA before, but I did talk to somebody who has used JG. And I wasn't very convinced by that conversation. I don't want to speak ill of a vendor. But yeah, that swayed me towards not that one, personally. I was between TASB and HYA. I think TASB is a very reasonable price, and I do want to be cognizant of how we're stewarding the money. I think I was a little nervous about HYA and how you had to opt into each little bit, right? So there's like, okay, here's our standard service, but for example, to post in the diverse pools that you were talking about, Ms. Michelle, that had an additional cost. And then there was an additional cost for, I think, background checks, which seemed to be a very standard thing to me in this kind of thing. So those were some of my thoughts. Ms. Canoyer, I see you pushed next, so I'll let you speak next.
I had similar thoughts. When I looked at TASB's proposal, I didn't see that they had a lot of experience with districts our size. And that was something that, on the one hand. On the other hand, they are very familiar with districts in Texas. And so that's a plus for me. I too know Dr. Jacklich. I've met him once, I think. He's been a superintendent in the area, and so that's why I know his name. I'm not very familiar with any of the other parties at all. I'm not leaning strongly one way or the other, just sharing what I was thinking
Yeah.
as I was reading.
Yep. I'd love to hear from everybody, even if you don't have a strong opinion about one of them, but just what was on your mind as you were reading, similar to how Ms. Canoyer shared.
I guess I'll go next.
Okay.
So what jumped out to me, and just like Ms. Pichal said with HYA and with JG Consulting, was the fact that they are looking at diversity, and so that really stood out to me. In regards to TASB, I saw that they didn't have a lot of experience, with the districts our size. And so I didn't really see any districts that they've worked with that kind of mirrored us as far as demographics and size. And so that's my thoughts so far.
Mr. Diaz, any initial thoughts?
I guess I appreciate the low cost of TASB, knowing that we're going to do a lot of work inside the district ourselves to make sure that we have the right leadership profiles, we'll have meetings and whatnot. So they seem like a good local partner that probably is a lot more receptive to us creating a more bespoke approach to the search. I guess my question is, do they have experience with national searches? I guess before I even make a determination, right? Because the other two, to y'all's point, did explicitly call that out. So are they here? Can we ask them that? No?
I think this meeting was to determine if we wanted
Got
them
it.
to come back and give presentations.
Okay,
So, no, we didn't ask them
Sure.
to be here.
okay. Well, those are my initial thoughts.
So hearing that, I think then maybe the next question is, do we want them to come in to make a presentation, or do we feel that we have enough clarity to move forward and make a choice from what we have today? Ms. Pichel.
I say we have them come and do presentations.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I agree as well.
Agree? Okay. Ms. Eaton,
I'd like for them to come in and make a presentation.
make presentations? Okay. Do we want all three of them to come in and make presentations, or are there two that we prefer? I'm fine with asking all three to make presentations. Yeah? Okay. All right. We had talked about doing that on Tuesday, January 3rd. Is that still available for everybody? Okay, so then we would invite all three of these vendors to come make a presentation on January 3rd. And during that time, we would also, what we had talked about was in that same meeting, work on a timeline. So I think there were different timelines proposed in each of these proposals. I don't think any of them quite mirrored what we were hoping for, and we had some rationale that we had discussed around that. And it also says here that we might have developed an applicant profile, but I think we'll need to make a selection before and have the group that comes facilitate that process of creating the applicant profile with us. But then also launching some community input meetings. And I think that those could also be done both in conjunction with the search firm, but I think that's also something we might have capacity to do as a district. And the communications department might be able to facilitate those for us. So we can kind of do a both and approach. But I think for you, Betty, it sounds like we're posting a meeting for January 3rd. Do we want to start at 5 or 6 for that? 6 o'clock? Okay. Is that face a, I like 6 o'clock, or you don't like 6 o'clock, Ms. Eaton? You like 6 o'clock? Okay. 6 o'clock works for me. Is that, everybody can do that? Okay, so we will meet on January 3rd at 6 o'clock and hear presentations from the three firms. I'd like to give some guidance to the firms. Honestly, I feel like we have a lot of information already, so actually it might be more useful to maybe think of some questions that we can do this right now, generate some questions that we would want them to answer. So maybe that can be our next point of discussion. Ms. Eaton and Ms. Pichelle, those are both, I just haven't advanced the discussion, correct? Or were you waiting to say something? You have something to say? Okay. Ms. Pichelle, was that old?
Or you haven't taken it off yet.
Okay, got it. I forgot. Ms. Eaton, did you have something to say? Go ahead.
The one thing, we had discussed having input from our teachers, communities,
Yes.
So it would be nice to hear from them prior to asking the firm questions, so we'd have an idea of what the community and our teachers and principals, what they're interested in too.
Well, I think that that's a good point.
Was that
And-
the intention?
No,
when we
I think the
discussed?
intention was to have teacher and community stakeholder input on the leadership profile that we're developing for the superintendent.
Oh, okay.
And then, but that the search firm would help facilitate having those meetings, compiling all the answers and reporting that data back to us.
Okay,
So I think
they're
we can
gonna
do
be
a both
involved in the
and.
second part.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So if you would like to add questions and I can take notes, then if you'd like, if there's a question you'd like to ask the search firms or have them prepared to present on, you can push the request to speak button. Mr. Diaz?
Other than what we- Are you speaking about something other than what we've already talked about?
Well, recap what we've talked about, just so I can record that, and so that we can give that to Betty and Mr. McQuaid to pass on to the search firms to help them prepare their presentations. Mr. Diaz.
So like as a wireframe, I'd like to hear them discuss, even though they've all similarly put it in the proposals, discuss how they go about establishing the community meetings, how they ensure that they're able to foster and nurture authentic conversations and pull folks together from community into kind of the participatory process. I'm curious about the retention rate of their placements in these districts. And their overall value proposition as to how, the value proposition behind their kind of approach, specifically. And I think because one firm delineated some options, I'd like to very specifically see by line item and maybe an explanation as to what their fees include and why.
Okay.
Again, I say that as a kind of a quick thought, not having gone through a process like this. So this is as much learning from the kind of the process to ensure that we're not missing anything, at least for my part. And I might think of more stuff once,
Yep.
okay.
Okay. Next one is Ms. Eaton.
Thank you, ma'am. One of the things that I'd be concerned about is a totality attitude towards the district, starting with our teachers, our staff, our students. Our students are our top priority, but we cannot accomplish anything with our students without having our teachers at their best. And our teachers can't be at their best if they don't feel that they're getting support that they need from the board and the district. So I'd like to know that they have experience and understanding that's the direction that myself as one board member, would like to see our district go on that trajectory of making sure that our next leadership understands that there is nothing more important to me than our students. And everybody on this board knows my top priority is our spec students. So it's been from day one and it still remains. I know all our students are important, but I want to make sure that we are giving the assistance that to our vulnerable students where it's needed. And it's not just our special ed students. We have students that are not labeled as special eds that have special issues. You know, one of my grandchildren is one. You know, he's not special ed, but I appreciate and acknowledge that teachers recognize there's something else going on, and they're guiding me as a parent, as a temporary parent, with what I need to do to help him, to help them get him where it needs to be.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that that person understands our district. We want to keep it moving up and forward.
So can I play that back to you, Ms. Eaton, and try to make it into a question? If this is a question for the search firm, could you talk about your experience including multiple voices, including students, teachers, and community members in shaping the search process? Okay. Ms. Fischel.
Success rate is important to me. I'd like to know what the success rate is of the searches that they've done in the past and recently.
And by success rate, do you mean
How many superintendents that they found for districts that are still working?
Okay, so tenure of the superintendents
Yes.
in there. Okay, thank you. How far back do you want that to go? Like 10 years or something, or? Seven years?
That's a good number.
Okay. Mr. Diaz.
So assuming that they all have already an existing bench of talent, I'm curious what the leadership profile of their existing kind of benches look like.
Okay.
Where do they source candidates from? How many of their placed administrators were existing superintendents? and how many were, I don't want to say undiscovered talents, but talent that was not in a position, but were already prepared to move into it. And then I'm also curious from their sourcing if they were matching, if what their experience in matching candidates with existing district profiles to new districts. Let me re-say that because I'm thinking on the fly. So I'm curious if when they look at talent and a district in the matchmaking process, are they trying to find somebody who already has experience with that size district? Or is that kind of secondary to the other qualities that they may have, right? So I'm just curious what their school of thought is behind matchmaking. But I'm going to say something one more time. So I'm curious from each of their standpoints, do they already have benches of candidates ready? Or do they launch into new searches? I suspect everybody's going to say, we launch into new searches. But I'm also going to want to dig into that to see, great, you launch into a new search. But at the end of the day, the placement, were they truly a new discovered person? Or were they somebody that was in your files, in your Rolodex already?
Like what I think is at the heart of your question is like, do you truly strive to find candidates that match the leadership profile that we've said is important? Or are you just giving us the same slate of candidates that you give to every district?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank
Like
you
in
for-
plain speak.
Thank you
I don't
for
know if we'd
translating. No, 'cause I was
say
thinking,
that to
yes.
them in
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
but okay, just trying to
Well,
understand.
they're going to hear it anyways.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions? I think the questions that I would have had have already been captured. I think I had a similar question to Ms. Eaton around like what's the approach to including all voices in the process. I think that's something that's very important to me as we move forward, and to not only to make sure that everybody is included, but also to build trust in the future leader so that, once they are chosen, folks can really see that their feedback was taken. And then, some of the more technical things about like, what are the fees? What do those fees include? I like your question, Ms. Pichelle, of like the success rate, like what's the tenure rate? Like, yeah, you place somebody, but how long did they stay there? Yeah. Any other questions folks would like to add? Okay. Thinking, Mr. McQuaid, yes.
How much time did you want to?
Yes, that was going to be exactly my next thing. So what I was going to propose to everybody is maybe 15-minute presentations and then 5 to 10 minutes for Q&A after each presentation. That would be about an hour and a half total. Does that seem fair?
I'd say more like 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15-minute presentation?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because we have a lot of information already. And then, Mr. McQuaid, do you want me to give you a copy of these questions, or is that something Betty will communicate to them?
Betty can, if I could get a copy, please, because I will send the invitation to the vendors.
Okay,
And
great.
communicate all the questions.
Yes.
And do you want most of their presentations centered around answering your questions? Or do you
Yeah,
want
I
the
think the
typical dog and pony show?
No, we don't, I think we have the dog and pony show in the packets, and these are the questions we have coming out of
Okay.
reading that information. And then knowing that one of these is located in Illinois, is everybody okay with them having the option to present over Zoom, or would we prefer them to be in person? Yes, Ms. Eaton.
I just have one more thing,
Yes.
because we had talked about this. I would like to have some questions from staff, especially
Okay.
excuse me,
Senior staff.
senior staff, I'm
Okay.
sorry, I apologize. We had discussed that.
Yes.
So, I would love that they include some questions. Because the thing is, the person is hired, works for the board. But then senior staff in the district, the principals, the assistant principals, and so on, they work for them. So they have concerns. I would love it if they could be able to submit some questions or concerns, because that will help us.
For the search firm?
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Because, you know, it's one thing to ask me what I would like to see as a superintendent, but that person's going to be working for me. I'm not working for them. So I would like for the people
Okay.
that will be working for them to have some type of input.
Are there any board members that object to that idea?
Just to clarify though, Ms. Eden, great point. Are those going to be the questions that we want to ask of superintendent candidates? Are you intending for those questions to come whenever we're actually ready to pick out candidates? Or for the actual, so as we pick out a search firm?
Oh, you know what? Okay. I messed
yeah.
up. You're right.
I want to conflate them.
Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Mr. Diaz.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think that's going to be phase 2.
that's going to be phase 2.
Yes, ma'am.
That's for, where did he went away? That's
he's
for
good.
phase
Yeah, he's
2.
sitting down.
That's for
Okay.
phase 2. I apologize.
Okay.
No, all good.
You're absolutely right, though.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's for phase 2. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll do 10 to 15-minute presentations with 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards. And then it is okay for those presentations to be via Zoom if the vendor chooses, or they can come in person on January 3rd. And, all right. So we're not making a decision. There's not like a voting item here, but we could, I guess, vote to have a meeting on January 3rd and hear presentations at that time, if somebody wants to make a motion.
I move that we meet on January the 3rd to listen to the presentations of the 3 search firms that responded to the RFQ.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll proceed to vote. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Yes, 6-0 of the board members that are here. And there being no further business for this special meeting, this meeting is adjourned at 5:51 PM. We'll start our regular meeting at 6.